For as long as I can remember, I have spent part of each summer in northwestern Rhode Island, where my family has a campground. The campground is about 5 miles of dirt roads and 400 sites on 200 acres of land, and there is always plenty of work to do to keep the place running smoothly. Since I've been old enough, I have helped with all sorts of tasks. In 2011, we decided to build our own log cabin to make longer stays possible so we could help out more. My grandmother, who was then 82, really needed more help. We bought a log cabin kit from Conestoga Cabin. After clearing an area near my grandmother's place, we used wooden forms to pour a concrete slab for foundation. My uncle is a very resourceful New Englander who has learned to do all sorts of things himself, including working with concrete. We put plumbing lines for the septic system into the slab. Unfortunately, though, there were no schematics for plumbing in the blueprints, and they ended up in the wrong place, a problem I would have to address later. The cabin footprint is 15 foot by 34 foot. We measured the position for supports for the porch, dug holes, and used cardboard concrete tubes for post forms. The blueprints provided by the manufacturer were our only guide. Every morning we hauled the boards we needed down to the building site. Unused boards were kept bound on their pallets and covered with plastic to reduce warping. The cabin floor rests on 6 4x6-inch beams lying along the length of the concrete slab. We carefully positioned the 4x6 studs and anchored them with metal spikes to the concrete foundation, using shims and a level. My grandmother, who studied architecture at the Rhode Island School of Design, kept a close eye on our work. My little brother, Christopher, 10 at the time, swept the foundation clean. Despite our best efforts, somehow my uncle's favorite hammer was left under the floorboards. My Uncle John used his loader to deliver the 3 boxes containing the many smaller wooden pieces, doors, windows, all the hardware and fasteners, a case of caulk, insulation, the electrical fixtures, Romex, switches, plugs, plates, and even light bulbs. The tongue and groove boards didn't always fit properly and need to be squeezed together with pipe clamps. This is our floor, so the fit has to be as smooth and tight as possible. The floorboards are 2x6-inch tongue and groove pine. My sister Meredith and I moved pipe clamps back and forth. My brother Christopher is in charge of adding extensions. A pilot hole is drilled through the tongue into each of the 6 floor studs. Then a 2.5-inch screw is driven into the stud deep enough not to obstruct the fit of the next floorboard. The pilot hole is essential to keep the thinner tongue from splitting. The pipe clamps needed to be moved several times along the length of each board. Sometimes a little extra weight is needed to hold the boards flat. The logs are not solid logs, but engineered or composite logs designed to reduce warp, as well as being cheaper. The first layer are half logs. We begin to understand the case of caulk. A line of tar tape foam insulation is laid between each log. There are staggered pre-drilled holes for attachment along each log. I spiked each new log layer to hold the walls in place. Romex didn't feed into the holes in the logs as planned due to excessive furring. We unwisely decided to take advantage of the fine weather to charge ahead and deal with the Romex problem later. I resort to the mallet and an extra board for protection to try to coax the relatively soft pine flat. Later, we try a block and tackle to align a seriously warped log, to no avail. Every log is numbered and belongs in a specific place. We check the level of every wall frequently, and check that the corners are square, but in reality the logs fit together so tightly there isn't very much we can do to change the alignment if it went awry. The interior walls are laid out flat until the walls reach the level above the interior doorways. Without the beam running across the top, there's nothing to hold the interior walls up. Ladders are needed to get enough purchase to drive the spikes. We go back to the store for longer and longer drill extensions in an attempt to solve the furring problem. Cleaning out the holes helps, but it's a long way to drive a piece of flexible Romex. Eventually, we resorted to pulling the Romex using a fishing wire. Working with wood means clamping all the time. We laid out the peaks like the pieces of a puzzle before assembling them. A little less than half the cabin has a loft space above it. The floor of the loft goes together exactly like the lower floor, with tongue and groove pine. Custom steel brackets hold the 4x6 loft floor joists. Ledger boards are drilled directly into the exterior walls to support the edges of the floor. The lower roof beams, which are actually the top wall logs, are cantilevered over the porch space. The peaks go up with little to support them before the 3 main roof beams are slotted into the peaks. We use the extended arm of a post hole digger to lift the heavy roof beams into place. Once the roof beams are in place, we can finish the peaks and begin screwing the tongue and groove roof boards into the roof beams and the tops of the walls. The loft floor provided a great staging for this section of the roof. Porch floorboards and a ladder provided further staging. The porch floor is supported by a network of 2 by 6-inch boards running between the concrete posts. Pressure-treated 2 by 6s are screwed on top. The vertical support beams are quickly towed in to support the roof. Attaching the rails to check the alignment is correct, we realize one of the 4 by 10 roof beams, 35 feet long, has a corkscrew-like deformation in it, resulting in a 2-inch wider opening on the left side of the porch. The wooden roof is completed. The last 2 boards have to be ripped at an angle to compensate for the skew in the roof beam. We were amazed how quickly mildew formed on the wooden roof following several days of steamy rain. Summer 2 started with building a set of bunk beds designed by the manufacturer. They screw right into the walls and are an incredibly efficient use of space. However, the window trim had to be modified to fit around the bed support. Finishing the electric was the next step. The Romex needed to be connected to 15 receptacles with 4 switches. There were 5 hardwired fixtures. These all had to be tied to the circuit breaker box in the bathroom. We also added an additional heavy receptacle for an electric stove, and one on the outside back wall of the cabin. My physics class came in handy when it turned out one of the lights in the bedroom had no switch, so we had to wire it to another switch, being careful to make sure the circuit remained parallel and not series, as this would have dimmed the light significantly. I used pieces of scrap lumber to build these removable shelves for the bathroom storage. They needed to be removable to provide access to the electrical panel and the hot water heater. I also built the shower wall with screws to take it apart so I could fix the shower, which I have had to do several times. Plumbing the bathroom sink was a bit of a challenge since the drainage pipe was laid in the wrong place. In retrospect, we should have bought all the fixtures and had their specifications ahead of time. Plumbing the toilet was a challenge too. The sewer line was off by about half an inch, and the PVC pipe set into the concrete slab had cracked and needed to be repaired. The drainage hole for the shower was the farthest out of alignment, but thanks to the abundance of PVC fittings available, we were able to come up with a solution. At the beginning of our 3rd summer, we found a slab of granite for a countertop, so we were able to plumb the kitchen sink. We probably used a little excess pipe glue, but it certainly won't leak. The window trim had to be ripped to fit inside the cabinets. Finally, I installed a shelf running across the top of the kitchen cabinets and added a little cabinet trim. It's a toss-up whether the best part of our cabin is finally having our own space or the fun we had building it.